DW Africa Link.
39 years ago, Uganda entered a new era, one that promised liberation, stability, and progress. Nearly 4 decades later, the nation stands at a crossroads. There have been victories, economic growth, infrastructure, and regional influence. But there have also been setbacks, political struggles, human rights concerns, and the lingering question of true democracy. Has Uganda fulfilled the promise of its liberation, or is the dream still out of reach? This is the story of a nation's journey, the good, the bad, and the road ahead. Stay tuned. My name is Josey Mahachi. Welcome to Africa Link, the podcast that connects you to the stories that matter from Africa.
Africa Link, every weekday here on DW.
Uganda on 26th January commemorated the 39th National Liberation Day when President Museveni came to power through a coup in 1986. Museveni had promised democratization, fundamental change, and political and economic transformation. Analysts say he has played a pivotal role in stabilizing the country, restoring peace and security in Uganda and the Great Lakes region. But his critics say he has overstayed in power, suppressed his political opponents, amended the constitution to favor him, and monetizing politics. Now, joining me for this discussion is Milton Kambura, a peace-serving ambassador and Ugandan analyst, as well as DW's correspondent in Kampala, Frank Yiga. Now, I'll start with you, Frank Yiga, as our reporter on ground, just to tell us how the day went. How did the Ugandans largely mark the 39th anniversary? What does this day mean for them?
Well, this day is big because, it liberated us. For us who lived by then, 1986, definitely we have a story to tell because the time they came in, the soldiers, the rebels by then, and took over power. It was a big deal. And we all got excited. Our parents was a little younger, but still I could tell that there's something coming up, something good has landed in Uganda. And like we call it the Victory Day or Liberation Day, here in Uganda, it comes at a time when, for now, there's a wide political divide among Ugandans, and it also comes with age, where people who lived before Museveni took over power in 1986, to some extent recognized the anniversary and appreciate the day. They appreciate the changes that came along with this day. That is in comparison with the previous governments. Most of the young people today take this day like any other public holiday and care less about the essence of commemorating this day. When it comes to the political divide, some analysts and critics of the regime say 39 years are too long to be marked while still in power. So we have that divide, that difference between the young people and the older people. And also, politically, could say that those in opposition definitely see no point in celebrating or marking this day. They want service. They don't want just commemorating or celebrating Liberation Day.
Right. Sometimes when I hear these numbers, I feel like, I'm so old now. That was 86. I was 3 years old when years old when President Yoweri Museveni started ruling Uganda. Now, Milton, 39 years since the liberation movement that ushered in Museveni. How would you assess the aftermath of that liberation?
Basically, here we are looking at the reasons why His Excellency Museveni went to the bush and ascertaining how far has he reached to achieving those targets. And to me, one of the most important elements is the area of democracy and rule of law. So here is that apart from conducting regular elections every 5 years, after 5 years, for MPs, of course, members of parliament, and local council systems, the question of being free and fair has come out strongly in courts, in court rulings, and many electoral observers are recommending electoral reforms. So some of these areas need to be fixed. On security and peace, there is a really relative peace and security. And because of this achievement, without fear or favor, all African countries see Uganda as a place for their refugees. And that's why now in the region, it prides in hosting 1.5 million refugees, specifically from the whole region, including South Sudan, DRC, Rwanda, Chad, Libya, Somalia, even the Afghanistan refugees are all here. So I think largely national unity. Of course, Uganda is now taking shape. Uganda is now having a national identity, which had been lost previously through those bad leaders that had positioned Uganda as the most dangerous place in the whole world, and no investment would really come.
Now, Frank, just to come to you, does it appear the anniversary is a great deal in Uganda these days?
Yes, these days, that's the key word. Now, historically, this is a great deal because it glorifies many Ugandans who sacrificed a lot, as in a lot. Some even died in the struggle to liberate the country from the past political turbulence. It's on record that there was poor governance in those past regimes, extrajudicial killings that were orchestrated by those in power, and many vices. So it's why the government, the current government of NRM, comes up with different themes every anniversary to show how important this day is. For instance, this 2025 39th anniversary has a theme, which is the salutation for those who re-sanctified our homeland. So you can clearly see that it glorifies those who those who sacrificed a lot to liberate the country. So historically, yes, I would authoritatively say the day is a great deal, even up to today. But to the flip side, the day lost meaning to some people. It's supposed to be more than just commemoration or celebration, year in, year out. Say when the NRM took over power in 1986, they came with the 10-point program. Now, this 10-point program was a guide to resuscitate the country. And one of the points was elimination of corruption and misuse of power. There was also elimination of sectarianism, but you can evidently see that they lost track and deviated from their initial vision. So Uganda ranks highly in corruption, misuse of public funds. So this waters down the significance of the day, and therefore not a big deal to some extent.
And there are some who credit Museveni for peace and stability, Milton. But however, there are also some Ugandans who feel this is not true. I know earlier you touched on a lot of nationalities who are like refugees in Uganda, meaning there is peace and stability to them. But how crucial has Museveni been in this?
You give credit where it is due. That is what is lacking in Africa, that when you are in opposition, you completely see your opponent in the face of Satan to the extent you can't even see the good side of him. In this verdict, I feel the president has helped Uganda to have relative peace. And the country, to that regard, has started attracting some investors, some foreign investors. But I think this is very crucial because everyone in the region right now, where can you go as a refugee is Uganda. And to that extent, 1.5 million refugees are in Uganda, and the government takes credit, although there should be need to improve to allow refugees also access job opportunities, and also those that are educated, that have been professionals in their country, to also join the competitive spaces of providing the much needed competent human resource that is needed in the country.
Right, right, right. Now, Frank, you are the mouthpiece for Ugandans as well. You're a reporter, and you've been reporting a lot on even refugees in Uganda. You've been reporting on elections, politics, and things like that. How do Ugandans rate Museveni's decades in power? Like now we are talking about him being highly credited for the peace and stability in the country.
Yes, just like Milton has said, you give credit where it's due. Well, he deserves a big tick for that, and he's played it positively. There is peace and security, there's no doubt. But of course, coming back to your question, almost 4 decades in power, it makes him one of the longest-serving presidents in the world, with no signs of giving up anytime soon. Now, which is a worry to the opposition people, because when you see as old as he is, 80 plus years, and then they see him at functions and being a soldier and a nutritionist, they get worried that the man may shoot, he has a future ahead of him in power. So some Ugandans applaud him and appreciate him for his immense political and socio-economic contribution to the country, like peace and security, professionalizing the army, a conducive environment for business investments, open space for political participation, freedom of speech, acceleration of GDP and other contributions that have stabilized the country. He has a big tick there. But other Ugandans strongly believe the country deserves better in a period of 39 years.
Right, right. Still with you, Frank. It will be 4 decades very soon that President Museveni is at the helm of power. Is there a feeling that he will continue to be in power?
Yes, there is a strong feeling that President Museveni is going to be in power. It's a definite yes. It's not just a feeling, but it's a big feeling. And he's coming back like he has always done. In the past, the 6 presidential elections, we have seen many attempts, like proposals to make parliament select the president. And his party, NRM, has the majority seats in the House. So that would give him an automatic,
So there are no signs of him even grooming a successor?
There's none. Milton can be my witness as an analyst. There's none, not even his son or what. So there is no sign of any member from his party to stand as a presidential candidate or flag bearer. So that gives him a clear path. He's currently traversing the country. Josey, I should let you know, is traversing the country to promote government programs like poverty alleviation programs, but some people say he is campaigning indirectly. It's not the first time he has done this. So every campaign season, it's the same template he uses before elections. Much as being a sitting president, he has the powers and is mandated to do so. But there are so many question marks that is it really genuine or it is campaigning?
Right. I know, Milton, you want to add something also on that. I mean, we're talking about if there's a feeling, and Frank says it's not a feeling, it's reality, he will stay in power.
His Excellency, the President of Uganda currently, he depends much on the top structure, the top mandated structure of his political party. The moment you see signs that they are bringing him back, just because it is on record, no one has challenged him in the party structure. So the moment you see those signs as they are right now and they have been concluded, you just know it's coming back on the ballot paper. And the different groups of people are kind of presenting themselves, seeking and telling him, please come back, please come back. So those people whose interests we cannot know, in my own opinion, have to must all be seeking for him to stand alongside other candidates within the party of NRM. It doesn't happen. So it's a sole candidate as usual. So a sole candidate, unchallenged, is very hard to predict his next move. Basically, you just know what he will be back with the other political party leaders and independent candidates on the polling station to be voted. So it's no doubt. Whether he will win or he will lose, I think it's a matter of Ugandans to decide.
But does he ever lose?
It has not happened, but I've also ever seen those who win many times losing one day. So that's why I'm putting my hope that let the people of Uganda decide. This time, 2026, maybe there could be many who are exhausted, who will not vote for him, or maybe those that are elders and, many young people don't vote in Uganda, and they are losing credibility in the political arena, and that's why.
So how do they expect to have change in the country to put their own candidates if they don't go out to vote?
Into why can't civil society organizations deepen civic education? And that's where now Uganda should be focusing at, to motivate young people to go and vote, to motivate young people to take on their country, to love their country, to be patriotic to Uganda and Africa.
All right. I'll just take you both back to a little bit to what you said. Yes, I know you said credit must be given where it is due. We're talking of peace. We're talking of stability in the country. But Museveni has also been criticized for cracking down on critics, Milton. Are those concerns legitimate and fair when his own people also are saying, no, this man doesn't want to hear anyone who criticizes him? And if you do that, a lot of things happen. Some are in jail, some disappear, some have lost their lives.
It's evident these days, the last 10 years, the type of politics in Uganda has changed to the level where I ask whether the president is supervising his actors on supervising the level of democratic governance and how governance is managed in the country. So these questions are actually very evident, and we actually pray that the mismanagement, for example, of police and their corruption, the corruption is the issue. The moment corruption eats the judiciary, which is supposed to deliver justice, you will find that frustration or delay of justice actually bridges those kind of tendencies. Where police is the top number one abuse of its mandate because of being corrupt, you are likely to have frustration of delivering peace and justice.
All right. Now, Frank, I know you also want to add something on that. You've reported a lot on a crackdown, especially on opposition. We've seen bullets and tear gas flying around, especially towards the opposition leader, Bobi Wine. Does it appear the opposition has grown stronger amid the crackdown or weaker?
The opposition, of course, grows stronger every time the government, comes in strong. Now, the government or the president now have gone bare knuckle. It is now real high definition attack on the opposition. They are whipping them seriously, and there's nothing to hide about that. And it, of course, gives the opposition a stronger ground and also others to grow. But still, it has less impact because already these opposition groups already made up their minds. They know who they are and they know what they want.
Still with you, Frank, as we wrap up our discussion, outside Uganda, much is said about Museveni and staying in power for long. But does it appear it is a big deal in Uganda, especially for the Gen Z who don't know any other leader apart from him?
Now, these Gen Zs, I can assure you, their thoughts are just the same as the people outside Uganda. Now, it is definitely a good feeling to see a new president through proper elections without rigging. It is a good feeling to see a president, peacefully handing over power to the next president. It is also a good feeling to start a new government with new political leaders. Josey, I can assure you, it is equally a good feeling to anxiously wait for the unknown after elections rather than expecting the obvious. Now, these young people are missing out on all this. They feel they're unfortunate when they see this happen in other countries. They want to be part of it. They want to see it, but they've never seen it.
And Milton, in conclusion to our discussion with looking into the future, whatever happens, whether Museveni continues or not, what must Uganda do to sustain its peace that you've really been commending and singing about, and even deepen its democracy?
I think the president is mature enough. He's now, we call him Jaja. Jaja is a grandfather. The young people like me, I think we should now focus on the bigger vision, because many times we make mistake thinking that when President X goes, so all our problems will be solved. I must tell you for sure, since 1962, or since all African countries got independence, we have changed regimes up to today. But the real question and the real strategic problems of Africa remain live kicking, to the extent that the whole African continent, out of 1.4 billion Africans, we have even failed to shoot our economy combined of 54 countries to even $4 trillion. But look at Japan, $6 trillion, a population of around 120 million people. What is the game change here? Is that young people should now look at a clear vision beyond these old men, beyond our mothers and fathers, to what is the century looking like? Visualizing and visualizing the purpose of young people, but also visualizing the future of Africa. So I would wish that, number one, a vision. Africa needs a unifying vision where young people from Egypt, South Africa, Nigeria to Nairobi, all the young people are thinking together to say we are one family, we are all Africans.
Milton Kambura, a peace-saving ambassador and Uganda analyst, also Frank Yiga, DW correspondent based in Kampala. Many thanks for joining us. At the Africa Link podcast, we always look across the continent to see how the stories and issues we are dealing with play out or at times even overlap. It is not only in Uganda that there is a long-serving leader. In Cameroon, Paul Biya, the second president of the country, has been in power since 1982. Can you imagine? It was even before I was born. And having previously been the fifth prime minister from 1975 to 1982. Amid reports of ill health and old age, he is yet to relinquish power. So how is life under Biya? Some Cameroonians have been speaking to DW.
What has been remarkable for me has been the president's capacity to navigate both national and international crises. We have evidence from the Bakassi crisis. We have evidence from the Boko Haram insurgency in the north and other ethnic conflicts that have been ongoing. Right now, we have the Anglophone crisis that is ongoing, and we can see the efforts that have been made, towards achieving a solution. And so for me, being able to be on top of each of these conflicts at every point in time is what I think is really remarkable.
I was 26 years old when Biya became president of Cameroon. And I recall how we took to the streets celebrating what we thought was change after 2 decades of Ahijo. Biya chanted out promises and slogans. He said his government would be anchored on rigor and moralization. He swore to stop corruption and end the ritualistic file chasing by civil servants in Yaoundé. Today, the practice has quadrupled. It is bad. It is very, very bad. Fundamentally, the only visible change in Biya's 42-year-old rule is a complete breakdown of law and order.
Since his accession to the helm of state in 1982, President Paul Biya has achieved quite much in terms of social reforms, especially in the area of education. But his balance sheet in 42 years is largely negative because this is somebody who promised to bring in rigor and moralization in public management. But what we have now is that we carry a stigma as a country that won the World Cup of corruption twice. He inherited a middle-income economy. But what we have now is a poor and miserably indebted country under the yoke of IMF-dominated management. He promised to bring democracy to Cameroon. But what we have now is the kind of democracy that shares common borders with dictatorship. When he took over this country, it was at peace. Right now we have a civil war going on in the northwest and southwest regions.
That's it for this edition of Africa Link. Remember, you are not just a listener, but a part of our community, and your engagement can shape the direction of our discussions. You are also free to send in your suggested topics that you'd want us to cover, because we value your insights and encourage you to share your thoughts with us. Please remember to follow so you can catch all of the Africa Link podcast episodes. This podcast was co-produced and edited by Isaac Kalechi. My name is Josey Mahachi. Thanks for listening. Until the next one, it's bye for now.
DW made